Yankee go home, or something like that. Isn't it interesting how if American conservative opinion spills over into Canada, people get very, very angry and upset. But when American leftist opinion influences our country, sometimes directly and arguably illegally, people say, well, that just happens, doesn't it? Now, George Soros, Glenn Beck, matters related. We're going to talk about this. Kris Sims in Ottawa has been following this story closely. Welcome to you, Kris.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Now, the first thing we'll do is see this video of Glenn Beck talking about George Soros and Canada. So let's have a look at it now, please.
Let me take a serious moment here and warn our Canadian friends. You are dealing with George Soros. We're dealing with him here. The man has billions of dollars and a wealth of experience overthrowing governments at his disposal. We know who this guy is. And once he and his money and his minions infect your system, you may never get them out. He will control your government. He will use pressure and scare tactics to control your industry. And he will control your press and eventually control and destroy everything you hold dear.
Wow. Obviously not a close friend of Mr. Beck. Tell us what he's on about, please, Kris.
Just to give a tiny bit of background, Michael, for people who are watching who don't know who either of these gentlemen are, Glenn Beck is a very, very popular and influential talk show host, both on radio and television. And Mr. Soros, who he is referencing there, is a billionaire, originally from overseas, from Hungary, who is now in the United States. And he basically gives money to many progressive organizations. That includes the Tides Foundation. Now, what Mr. Beck is on to here, what he's trying to say is that the Tides Foundation is basically a clearinghouse for progressive money. They take in all these donations and then they distribute it. What he's saying is one of the benefactors of Tides is a group called MoveOn.org. It's an American-based, civil group that basically is trying to push for progressive ideas. They're very big fans of Barack Obama. They push for progressive things. One person who is with MoveOn.org apparently is also one of the advisors to LeadNow.ca. LeadNow.ca, as our own Brian Lilly uncovered, is one of the main agitators in this whole RoboCalls thing. You go to LeadNow.ca and the first thing you see is, are you upset about the Elections Canada robocall fraud? Click here. And so that's what Beck's onto here.
So you're telling me that the 30-odd thousand apparent complaints about robocalls, it wasn't Canada just spontaneously erupting in anger at what the Tories did?
8 months after the election? No, apparently not, according to Mr. Beck and according to a lot of people who've been analyzing it here at Sun, Michael. It doesn't sound like Bill and Martha and Bancroft. Again, there's a major investigation going on. If any real evidence comes out, of course, it's going to be dealt with. But the connections being drawn here is that these groups are basically being accused of drumming this up. And a lot of people, actually, I was listening to talk radio yesterday, Michael, people are signing up words like Santa Claus, Barack Obama, Pope, Benedict, to this organization. And so they're saying is, here you are outraged over so-called robocalls and calling it American dirty tricks, and yet it's now being connected to Americans on the left who are being agitators in this case.
Well, we faced something not entirely dissimilar with one of the major anchors on our station. There were huge numbers of complaints, and many of them we knew came from a part of the country where the station at that point, very early in our broadcasting life, the station wasn't even aired. So all of these people were complaining, even though they could never see the station, even if they wanted to. The whole thing, of course, was contrived. This, we know, is the same. But not many people outside of Sun News are reporting that the 30,000 nonsense is actually just a complete crock.
It's actually over 40,000 now.
Is
if
it?
you go to LeadNow.ca, the first thing they trumpet is now more than 40,000 complaints. Add your voice to the chorus. So, and as you point out, the group that you're mentioning there that is similar to Move On and seems similar to LeadNow.ca is Avaz.org.
Right.
That was the one that, of course, opposed Sun News Network from launching before we had broadcast 1 second of content, accusing us of about to be spewing hate media. So that got a little bit dusty there.
Well, I mean, I try to be as hateful as I possibly can be. But you're in Ottawa. You know how Ottawa media works and the press corps and so on. They're not fools. I mean, maybe they have a certain bias, but they're not completely stupid. Surely they must realize this is not genuine. There aren't really 40,000 Canadians who are just so incredibly angry at what happened 8 months ago.
It's a good question, and that's the thing that seems fishy, right? 8 months ago, yes, that sounds like there's something weird that went on in Guelph, and again, they are searching for hard evidence. But to suddenly have a apparent flood of 40,000 plus people suddenly calling Elections Canada, it just doesn't sound right. And then also, Elections Canada, Daniel Prusilides reported yesterday, Michael, here at Sun, Elections Canada is begging people, real people, if you really did have a harassing phone call trying to, do election fraud, phone us, please. Don't sign up to this thing online because they're just getting inundated with all these so-called calls, which are really just email alerts that they don't have time or the staff to deal with.
I've always wondered about this. When people complain about radio or TV, it's always the same people. I don't know people who would go to the effort to go to the internet to find out the address, the emailing address, the Human Rights Commission, the people in charge. But they do. They must be, I don't know, unemployed, a lot of time on their hands, living in mum's basement, or maybe they're just professional hats being paid by far-left activists in the United States.
It's a good question. A lot of people are trying to investigate it up here. Hopefully more and more people will start investigating it. I must point out there are a few Canadians who are involved with Lead Now, and they're very, very skilled communicators. But the link that Glenn Beck is drawing here, that he's trying to draw back to George Soros, is an American link to MoveOn.org and similar organizations, saying that a lot of this furor and a lot of this anger over supposed election fraud could be coming from these sorts of organizations instead of actual people.
All right. Well, 1812 anniversary, I suggest we invade and we tell them who's boss. The thing is, they've got a big army, haven't they?
We'll paint the White House again. Let's pick a different color.
Burn it down? Yeah, that's quite a good idea. As ever, a great pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.